After a 3-9 season a year ago for the Pitt Panthers, not many expected Pitt to be sitting at 5-0 for the first time since 1991 to start a season, ranked in the top 25 poll and claiming their first ever victory in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Welcome in to the Pittsburgh Sports Now Football Pulse. I'm Nathan Breisinger, joined alongside by Karl Ludwig. Be sure to check out all of our Pitt football coverage over at pittsburghsportsnow.com. But Pitt is rolling. We talked about it last week, heading into the North Carolina game, 4-0, first, time through the non-conference slate undefeated, but now there's a conference win to that resume so far this season, sitting at 5-0, in a game in which it was a little dicey at the beginning, a little back and forth for the first half, but then really Pitt started taking control for the most part in that second half and really, outgained, outcontrolled the Tar Heels throughout. And Eli Holstein in this offense, once again, got it done with the defense really stepping up at the end as well. And Karl, let's start there. What's your sort of first takeaways, first thoughts from that victory down in Chapel Hill, North Carolina for the Pitt Panthers?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you mentioned, first victory in Chapel Hill. That's always big. It's very hard to play on the road, very hard to play in Chapel Hill. So a win there, a win by 10 points, covering the spread, handling business in the fourth quarter. That's always big time. It's a big confidence boost. It gets the ACC playoff on the right foot. 1-0, 5-0 in the season. I mean, you're looking good. You're ranked now. It wasn't perfect as has been the case all season, but I mean, it's hard to win games. It's hard to win a lot of games too. And to win 5 of 5 against 3 Power 4 opponents, that's hard to ask for a lot more than that. But beating UNC, beating Mac Brown, getting that big game down there. Eli looked good. Defense wasn't sharp all throughout, but as has been the case all season, when the lights were shining brightest, they made plays. Kyle Lewis made a huge sack there, the first of the game. Four turnover on downs in that game. I mean, it wasn't always pretty, like you mentioned, but I thought Pitt was in control throughout. I thought it was never really a question of who the better team was. I thought Pitt gave them some ammo to play with a little bit, but I think the Panthers handled business and got the job done. And that's what matters at the end of the day here.
And this was a North Carolina team coming in, really after two tough losses. We talked about this last week on the show. 70-50 loss to James Madison, a 1-point loss to your rival Duke on the road. I mean, they were coming in with a chip on their shoulder and they were playing well, running behind Amari Hampton early. Pitt, having a little bit of a tough time stopping him. But I mean, again, the Pitt offense, I mean, they just were able to roll, score points when they needed to. There was a couple drives, and obviously Eli Holstein throwing his first career pick six. I'm sure a lot of people were like, oh boy, I mean, Pitt could be in for a rough one today. But once again, he found a way to settle down this offense, found a way to start, moving the ball quickly. And again, it was Holstein, it was Des Reed, Konate Mumpfield, Des Reed, once again, having 100-plus yard receiving games in the same game. Happened a few weeks ago at Cincinnati. But, I mean, you got to talk about the offense. Again, Eli Holstein was sharp after that pick six. He looked pretty solid. Completion percentage wasn't great. Don't have the number in front of me, but still, he picked it up. But Des Reed, man, I mean, he's just been the all-around guy for this Pitt team so far.
Yeah, I mean, Des Reed, I mean, if I know he was a little banged up at the end there, cramping up a bit. He went to the locker room, got the IV, came back out, and had some really hard runs. I didn't think we'd see him again in the fourth quarter, to be honest. I thought he was banged up again. He was kind of wobbly a bit, but he goes in the locker room. He gets the job done. Coach Nuzzi, he mentioned the trainers did a great job there getting him ready. Came back out, and he had some really hard runs in that last drive, the 7-minute drive to kind of clinch the game there. I know he had 29 carries against UNC. That's a lot. I'm not sure if he can handle that every single game, but as long as he's healthy and as much as Pitt can get him on the field, he needs to be on the field. He's a splash player. He's a weapon. He's a difference maker. Pitt needs him as often as he can go. If that means 25 carries or touches a game, he's earned it. No. I mean, Rodney didn't do a whole lot. Carter dropped a touchdown pass potentially on the first drive there, but Pitt needs Desmond Reed, and they need him as much as he can give them. So I think he's a very tough, really tough kid. I think he'll bounce back and be healthy for Cal and the rest of the season. But man, he is just such an important player to this offense.
And sitting at currently 193.5 all-purpose yards per game. That's second in the country behind Ashton Genty of Boise State, who a lot of people are pointing out as a really, a midway point Heisman contender. I mean, top three guy right there from Boise State, and he's a heck of a running back. But for Desmond Reed to be right there, all-purpose yards, obviously you got to factor in that punt return he had at the beginning of the season as well, helped out in that category there. But I mean, to have 100 yards receiving twice already this year is the first Pitt player to ever do so. That's a running back to have two 100-yard receiving games. I mean, he's just been unbelievable. And the big difference from this Pitt offense has been anytime they touch the ball, especially Desmond Reed and some of these receivers like Nante Mumfield, we were talking about 3 receptions, 111 yards. I mean, he's a big play type guy. Anytime these guys touch the ball, something can happen, especially Des Reed. I mean, you don't want to miss whenever he's on the field and he gets the ball because he's so elusive. He can cut so quickly. He can make people miss and make big plays happen. And it's all coming together, or it's all come together so far through these first 5 games for the Pitt Panthers under this K Bell offense, who I mean, I've been more and more impressed as the season's gone on, especially this game. There was a handful of plays that, were perfect, especially on the drive of the Poppy Williams touchdown. There was a play to Reed sort of right out of the backfield that opened up because two guys were crossing into the middle, allowed for about a 23-yard play there to set up then the pass to Poppy Williams, where again, more crossing routes. Poppy Williams had enough space, but I mean, the play designs from Cade Bell have really, really helped this offense and the playmakers within it.
Yeah, absolutely. Cade Bell has been a revelation. I've mentioned that a few times this season, but he is. It's just it's kind of insane to see how different Pitt can operate. With, I mean, I know there's some very key additions to the roster in the offseason, but it's just to watch guys running free downfield and in the flat and crossing and having actual route trees and route concepts that kind of open up plays throughout the game is just such a difference from the last 2 seasons. And then you can see it. I mean, Eli Holstein has done a great job of commanding this offense. He has to go out and execute, of course. He has to make the plays himself, but it really helps when you have players running deep 45 yards downfield where you can trust to make that throw and drop it in there and they're open. And then if you can't do that, you can check it off to Evan Reed, or you can hit the shorter routes 10, 15 yards down the field, or even just take off and run. I mean, the offense is just totally different. And it's Cade Bell. Cade Bell has been just what Pitt needed, and Pet Narduzzi, he needed to make a splash hire of a change from what he had been doing, and Cade Bell was exactly that. I'm probably the best hire of his career. Cade Bell has brought new life into this program, and they're ranked again. The offense is scoring 45 points a game. I believe that's fourth in the country now. They're seventh in yards now. I mean, I don't want to compare it too soon to the 2021 offense with Kenny Pickett and Jordan Addison, but it's very different from that season too, because you have a lot of guys getting a lot of targets, a lot of carries. You have 4 100-yard receivers, 200-yard rushers. I mean, a lot of weapons here, a lot of options to work with, and it keeps defenses on their toes. And I think it will continue to do so entering the ACC play here. But it all revolves around Cade Bell and Eli Holstein, and they're both doing a fantastic job through 5 games here.
And the updated numbers, 522.2 yards per game is fourth, and then the 45.6 points per game is sixth nationally. So, I mean, again, just some incredible numbers. Eli Holstein, 15 passing touchdowns, that's tied fifth in the country. 1,500 plus yards is 12th in the country. He's 21.6 points per game responsible for is Eli Holstein. That's fourth in the country. So, I mean, just all those numbers speaking for themselves and showing what this Pitt offense has been able to do. And Holstein, again, I mean, the accolades continue. Rookie of the week in the ACC. He's the first Pitt quarterback to win his first 5 starts since Dan Marino did it. Surpassed the single game rookie passing record for a Pitt quarterback in a game. He had 381 passing yards. So, I mean, he's just been able to get it done. But on the flip side, North Carolina, they missed on some plays. I mean, obviously their defense came up with the turnover. It's the only turnover of the game. But I mean, big drive in the first half. Second drive of the game, they go 19 plays, 81 yards, and don't come up with points. They turn it over on downs on 4th and 2. They were 2 of 6 on 4th downs in this game, including a big stop at the end where Amari Hampton was stuffed. And that could also be a big credit to Pitt, their defense settling in, as we've mentioned. Amari Hampton in the first half was a big key in this game, stopping him. 83 rush yards in the first half. He had 23 in the second half, and there was only 26 total yards on the ground from the Tar Heels. So Pitt's defense really, really stepped it up there in the second half again.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of been the story of the season so far defensively, where they're kind of shaky throughout. They give up the chunk plays. There's a guy wide open in space downfield for a first down. There are some gashes up the middle of the field where the D line's kind of pushed to the side and the hole opens up and the C parts and they run through it. But um, credit to the defense here for when it matters most, when the game is on the line, the defense is locked in. It hasn't always been pretty. The numbers aren't great. 25.5, 7 points per game, 400 yards allowed against UNC, but 2 of 6 on 4th down. And you mentioned that 19 play drive. Javon McIntyre was phenomenal on that drive. He was in coverage on that 4th down pass. He didn't break it up, but he was tight on the receiver's hip. He impacted the play. He was strong all night. Um, I think the defense isn't probably what it's. I think the defense is what it is. I don't think we're going to see a massive improvement going forward. Not the best Pat Narduzzi defense, but it doesn't have to be. The defense has to keep doing what it's doing right now and just make the stops when it matters. And in modern college football, I mean, that's kind of all you have to do is you have an offense. Pitt's going to score points. They're going to score a lot of points. They can score fast. They can grind the clock out and score slow. But Pitt will have to have some of those key timely stops. And so far through 5 games, they've gotten those stops. It's a little risky to rely on them making 4th down stops, but it's a unit that kind of gets better throughout the game, and it has pieces I think who can be legit superstars this season and going forward as well.
And Carl, you and I talked heading out of the facility on Monday, just that this defense, this has kind of been the recipe for Pitt's defense. Yeah, they obviously, break a little bit in the first half, but then they really, step into that bend don't break type defense in the second half and come up big, especially in 21, 22 a little bit, but 21 we were talking the ACC championship game. I mean, that game against Wake Forest was what, 21-21, somewhere around there going towards halftime, after halftime, and then Pitt's defense just stepped up and they got takeaways, they made plays. That's kind of what we're seeing here. I mean, obviously a lot younger, a lot more inexperienced, but like that's just kind of how it's been over the past few years. But some of the big players on this defense, Kyle Lewis, Donovan McMillan led the team in tackles against the Tar Heels, but Lewis was just a playmaker. I mean, he's been a baller. He's been kind of now the closer for Pitt, coming up with that big sack to finish the game, came up with the big INT against West Virginia. I mean, he's just been an exceptional player at the linebacker position for Pitt.
Yeah, I mean Kyle Lewis. It's hard to kind of. I mean, Eli Holsting gets a lot of praise. He's been phenomenal, but Kyle Lewis at linebacker at that star position has been just phenomenal. Um, he's a nose for the ball. Whether it's a key pick against West Virginia, the sacking Criswell on 4th down against UNC. I think he has 6.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 2 picks, a whole lot of tackles. I mean, he's been phenomenal. He flies to the ball. Him and Rasheem Biles, those 2 outside linebacker spots have been. They're we all saw the potential there, that we knew they could be good players in the future if things kind of clicked for them. But I don't want to say surprised, but it's been really fun to watch them kind of make that jump and to hit that hurdle running as fast as they've done so far this season. I mean, it's been very fun to watch them fly around. And Brandon George in the middle has been great. Um, there are some problems, with some mental mistakes and some missed tackles here and there and some run fits, but man, this unit is just full of potential and it's shining right now. It's not like it's like the next year could be a great year if they all stay together. Now that they're good now. This team has expectations. They have aspirations that these 2 players, the whole linebacking core, not I mean Key Thompson and Braylon Lovelace. I mean this unit should help the team win big games now. So it's been super fun to watch them grow and kind of. I mean Kyle Lewis is a star. He's a superstar. He's an All ACC player, and he's not alone either. So it's been really cool to watch him grow this season.
Yeah, he's been so fun to watch and see him fly around the field. He's got speed, he can tackle well, he can finish plays. And we talked about finishing the game with the sack against Criswell, but that was kind of a little bit of a topic. Okay, Pitt throughout that game, neither team had recorded a sack up until that point. But the big thing is Pitt has sort of still not found that rhythm to get to the quarterback just yet and getting back there and recording sacks. However, they had 11 QB hurries in this game. UNC only had four. So, I mean, yes, they're not getting to the quarterback, but they are putting pressure on the quarterback. And they're also getting quarterback hits, hitting Criswell, which obviously takes him out of his rhythm as well. And a player that stepped into that role nicely and getting towards the quarterback was Sean Fitzsimmons, who saw his first game action, led the team with three QB hurries, and he made some plays quietly throughout this game.
Yeah, I mean Sean. I mean we all know that Sean's a strong player, a local kid, absolute monster at Central Valley. Comes in here, plays a little bit freshman year. He records a sack in one of his first games. Hurt last season. You know it happens. Hurt this season, beginning of the year, missed the first four games, and it's like, man, we've heard all about him. I mean, we know that he has potential. Is he actually going to come in here and meet expectations? And in one game against UNC, he was phenomenal. 41 snaps coming off his debut, more than Pat Narduzzi thought he would do. You mentioned that the hurries and the pressures, but what stood out to me was he had three quarterback hits too. That's, I mean, he wasn't getting the sacks, but as Pat Narduzzi mentioned today, sometimes those hits are just as important as the sacks. I mean, if he's hitting a quarterback and they're forced to get up off the ground three times just because of him, I mean, he's in their head. He's making plays. He's impacting. Maybe the quarterback is a touch too soon on a throw, or he holds on a bit longer, trying to roll out and get out of the way. I mean, he's Fitzsimmons he was strong, and he did it without their previous best knee tackle Nick James, who didn't make the trip to um, Chapel Hill. I think he's okay. I think he'll play this week against Cal, but I think Pitt has two pretty strong interior defensive tackles there in Nick James and Sean Fitzsimmons, and I'm excited to see him work in tandem because Fitzsimmons he made a lot of push on the D line. Nick James was the best kind of penetrator among the groups through his first four games. So I'm ready to see him work in tandem and kind of build more of that push and stop the run and kind of bring more interior pressure on quarterbacks and let Jimmy Scott and Nate Matlack and Sincere Edwards kind of have more freedom off the edge, and that might open up more opportunities, more sack chances. And I know the numbers aren't great right now, but there is potential if everyone can kind of work together here and stay healthy.
And this was a area of the team where both of us felt that needed to improve after the first four games, after the first um, third of the season had gotten underway. And I'd say they looked a lot better maybe than the first couple of games, especially with the insertion of Sean Fitzsimmons in there. But you get Nick James in there, you have basically a fully healthy D tackle room. As you mentioned, Isaiah Neal, Nakai Johnson back there as well. I mean, this D line can start to really become a solid unit because a lot of other pieces of the defense have been pretty good with the linebacker play and the safety play. So up the middle, I mean, that's going to be a key part moving forward are the D tackles. But as it stands, Pitt 5-0, first time, as we mentioned, since 1991, and they are ranked in the AP poll, placed 22nd. So Pitt getting that national recognition, getting some talks also about, hey, there's a chance they can make the playoff. Also, what is it, like 17% at this point, 18% chance
Something like
to
that
make
on
the playoffs? It's
ESPN.
not
Yeah.
not super high, but they still gotta, beat out teams like Miami, Clemson. Obviously, they have them at home down the road. Um, there's a lot of aspirations in front of them, as you mentioned, Carl. But I mean, right now where it sits, I mean, sitting 22nd in the country is really good after a year they had last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's great exposure. It's great to have that kind of prestige of having the little number next to your name on broadcast, and you can say, "Oh, Pitt Panthers are we're number one in volleyball, number one in men's soccer, number 22 in football. We're ranked in women's soccer." I mean, it's great publicity. It's great to have that exposure, but I don't think Pitt really cares much. I mean, I know Pat Narduzzi says that he doesn't care. They don't mention it in meetings. It's that 1-0 mentality every week. and now there is a bit of a target on their backs. I mean, they're a ranked opponent hosting a Cal team that had a tough loss against Miami. Um, they're 0-2 in the ACC despite their strong kind of debut to the conference, and they're the target now. Pitt's ranked. It's a great offense. There's a star young quarterback, and is this team legit? Can they continue to play as they have all season, or is it kind of just like they played a couple of Big 12 cupcakes and they beat a bad UNC team? Um, the goal now isn't just to kind of make an appearance in the AP poll. It's to kind of build upon that, continue rising, and eventually have or earn a spot in the college football bowl, which comes out in November. So it's good. I mean, there's no bad publicity in being ranked. It's awesome. It's great for the school, great for recruiting, great for everything. But it's not like it doesn't really matter right now. Being ranked doesn't matter. Being 5-0 is awesome. Um, Being 1-0 in the ACC is awesome. That's what you want to have happen. You want to have guys on the ACC team of the week. You want to have all this on-field success. But I mean, being ranked is just a cool little thing right now. It's about kind of building off that now and continuing to rise and to win football games.
It's all about that sustainability at this point for Pitt. And looking at their schedule ahead, I mean, there's not really any games that you can say are pushovers. I mean, even a team like Virginia that we thought earlier in the year that okay, this could be a for sure win. I mean, there's not many games that are up that are Pitt is going to be heavily favored in. And currently a field goal favorite against Cal, who's coming into Pittsburgh this year as an ACC newcomer. It's the first meeting between these two schools since 1966. So not a ton of unknowns in this game right now, but the one thing we do know is Cal's 3-2. They had a 35-10 lead against Miami at home. College game day was in Berkeley. Big crowd, electric atmosphere. They're up by 25 points midway through the third quarter, basically, and then things unravel, and the Miami Hurricanes are still undefeated and even climbing even higher in the AP pool. But Cal, I mean, this is not a team that you can look past.
No, it's not. I mean, and they're another run heavy team. It feels like Pitt faced all bunch of run heavy teams this season. Um, Jade Knott is their star. He's been kind of banged up this year. Hasn't had a great year numbers wise, but he is a very fast, dynamic player. And his backup, Javian Thomas, they call him Jet. He's also a very fast, agile kind of guy. I mean, they're gonna run the ball a lot, and kind of like UNC, they'll have tons of screenplays. They'll get the ball out to guys in space. They'll swing it out there. Um, and it might not be another game where there's a bunch of sacks, but if Pitt can rally to the ball, they can get those linebackers moving. They can get the D line pushing on the inside and forcing a throw maybe a second too soon. I think they'll have some success there. But it's another team kind of like UNC where there's two good running backs. The quarterback is mobile enough to make plays, and they're hungry. I mean, the Cal team, the Cal fan base, it's been a very nice addition to the ACC, and they want that first ACC win. And what better way to do it than to be the ranked Pitt squad on the road, in what should be a pretty fun environment in Pittsburgh too.
Yeah, this Cal team, though, only ran for 73 yards against Miami, so a little bit less than what we would expect. I mean, yeah, Jaden Ott's that's a big running back. If he's fully healthy and going to be a difference maker, it's going to be a tough one again. But Pitt, they've found ways to limit these running backs later in the games, whether it's been C.J. Donaldson, Jaheim White, and then Amarian Hampton at UNC. But this Cal team, they had some explosive plays against Miami. Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback, he made some plays. So this is going to be a tough team. They had a pick six as well against Miami, so it's going to be a very interesting challenge. But I expect, Acrisure Stadium to be lively, energetic, with a new sort of wave of energy to it. I mean, you come from that Youngstown State game, and then you have a few weeks off basically from a home game, and now this team's ranked. Now this team's really rolling, and they've sort of proven that, like, okay, I mean, those first three games against two rivalry teams and emotional games. They won, but now you've added, a big time victory against Youngstown State, just blew them out of the waters how they should have. And then off of a bye week, they win it at UNC for the first time in program history. So there's going to be a lot of, energy, I think, coming into this game from the team and from the fans. So, final thoughts from you on this matchup, Carl.
I mean, like always, it's 1-0 this week. Pitt has to win to keep momentum going. They have to kind of prove that they've earned the spot, and they should continue to keep the spot. Should be a fun game, I think. I mean, I think Cal's a good football team. I know everyone mentions, oh, it's a good team. They have a good offense, good defense, but I think Cal's a good football team. I think they're a surprise team this season that I think they'll give Pitt a challenge. They're a bit like UNC in that regard, where they have a similar offense. The defense obviously was gashed a bit in the second half against a strong Miami offense, but it's a game where I think Pitt once again should come out and they'll move fast on offense. They'll score their points. The Pitt defense will, um, I think, coming off the UNC game, they'll rally to the ball pretty well. They'll make the tackles. They'll kind of stifle the vertical and the lateral game. And that's when I think Pitt again should come out on top of it. I know it's kind of um, I know it's like a ranked matchup, but it's a tough game for Pitt. They'll have to show up and make those adjustments that they didn't make against UNC, especially in the first half with the sloppy play. But I think coming off that game and seeing how close it was in the first quarter, I think that we much more. I don't want to say prepared because they're never not prepared, but I think much more kind of ready to attack the first quarter and to ride that wave into the second half and kind of put together the first full game. Still looking for this season.
And you'd expect Cal to come over to, sort of towards the East Coast. Again, another team that's coming off a tough loss, just like North Carolina. They're going to play with an edge to themselves, trying to come into Acrisure Stadium for sure and try to get that win. And they've gone through a little bit of a gauntlet so far this season. Auburn, a win down there. San Diego State, a Mountain West team, not an easy team to play against. Florida State, then Miami, and now to Pittsburgh. And be sure to stay tuned, though, for more Cal Pitt preview here on the Pittsburgh Sports Now Pulse later this week. Looking to have a special guest on and get more of a conference perspective on this matchup as we head in deeper into the season for the Pitt Panthers. Well, that'll do it for Karl Ludwig. I'm Nathan Breisinger, and we appreciate you tuning in to the Pittsburgh Sports Now Football Pulse.